Hello everyone, welcome to the TRB Presentation. Today we have one presenter. His name is Paul Metaxatos, and he will introduce himself and let us know what he will be talking about.
Thank you, Amy, and thanks to all the ICT team for setting this up, this webinar, and I'd like to also thank everybody who took time and to attend this presentation. The topic of the presentation is advancing pedestrian safety at railway crossings, and this is based on research that we did for the last couple of years regarding pedestrian safety at railway crossings, and that was a project that was supported by both ICT and the Illinois Department of Transportation. My colleague, Dr. Siraj, that you see on the slide, was the co-principal investigator of the study. I was the principal investigator, and this presentation will describe or discuss some of the research, not the entire research. And the objectives of the webinar is to highlight some thematic areas and specific issues and what kind of countermeasures that are related to pedestrian safety at railway crossings, and offer some discussion for both researchers and practitioners involved in safety at railway crossings. Why this topic is important? There are two issues mainly that made the motivated the Illinois Commerce Commission, of course, and the Illinois Department of Transportation to commission this project. The issues is that the number of fatalities for at highway rail crossings are declining, but this is not true necessarily for pedestrians at the same grade crossings. Either are dedicated grade crossings. And the very fact that the non-motorists and pedestrians, as we will call them in this webinar with a generic name, so the issue that the pedestrian fatalities have remained essentially stable over the last say dozen years or so, is a cause of concern, and we try to see whether we can see what are the issues behind this this trend. The research that we undertook with in this project was to do some literature reviews to see what we know about pedestrians at grade rail crossings, and also to talk some experts in both state departments of transportation, utility commissions, and experts from the private industry. Additionally, we did some field work where we interviewed users, pedestrian users at railway crossings, and also we did some video monitoring to examine the behavior. But these are issues. The field results are not be part of this presentation. In this presentation, we'll limit ourselves, discuss what is available from the literature, and what the experts told us. Basically, it's the same presentation that we made in the TRB annual meeting back in January, and it's with the we're encouraged by the ICT to provide that, so for the benefit of Illinois engineers who are involved in safety. Why this is a difficult problem? Because, as we said, the trend is not declining, despite that the drivers' number of fatalities and incidents have declined over the years. It's a difficult problem for all these reasons that you see on this slide. Pedestrians violate at different locations and at grade crossings. It can happen within the area of train stations or are away from train stations. And also that depending on the type of rail, of rail tracks, whether there's a commuter rail or light rail or freight rail, would require different countermeasures. And also the pedestrian crossings that by themselves serve different types of non-motorized users: pedestrians, walkers, people with strollers, teenagers, say, just with the skateboards or rollerblades, even equestrians sometimes. So for all these reasons, it's difficult to provide a single set of countermeasures to address this issue. So what we know from the literature about these pedestrian fatalities at rail grade crossings is that most of the time it's alcohol and drugs involved, meaning that the pedestrian users are under the influence when incidents and especially fatalities happen. Also, the typical pedestrian fatality is an adult. It's a male and also of Caucasian origin, and about a quarter of the incidents are suicides. For countermeasures, we found that fencing, landscaping, and warning signs to be relatively speaking effective in dealing with trespassing. Regarding warning devices, we have tried many types of warning devices, and from warning signs, short gate arms, tunnelizing devices, swing gates, zigzag gates, and all types of devices. And the research has shown that of active devices seem to be more effective than passive devices. And by active devices, in particular, we have we mean the train-activated signals and the relatively new, recently installed, at least in our region, the second train coming active device. So these active devices have been proved to be relatively effective in reducing the risky behavior on behalf of pedestrians. There are various factors that should be examined during the this warning device selection, as we say, and the number of criteria that are used in practice are collision experience. It's the pedestrian volumes and peak flows, train speeds, number of trains, and railroad traffic patterns. The side distance that is available to pedestrians as they approach the crossing, the skew angle of the crossing related to the relative to the railroad tracks. So this is among the selection criteria that the diagnostic team has to consider while selecting the appropriate mix of warning devices. And this is what is done in practice. Regarding accessible signals, and by accessible signals, we mean the devices that communicate information about pedestrian timing in a non-visual format. For example, audible tones, verbal messages, and even vibrating surfaces, and as they described in the MBDCD. So all these signals have been deployed more or less in the regular intersections, as we know, but less so in at pedestrian grade crossings. And there is more experience, I would say, from we've seen in our research on accessible signals in other countries, especially in Europe, where they have done a lot more field research on accessible signals at pedestrian grade crossings, especially in the vicinity of rail train stations. With the intelligent transportation systems technologies becoming mainstream, it's possible that we'll see some impact on the development and deployment of different types of technologies to alert the pedestrian users, pedestrian crossing the tracks of an incoming train. And in particular, these technologies, we all know, are the vehicle-to-vehicle, the vehicle-to-infrastructure, and vehicle-to-consumer devices are being developed. And we're probably going to experience some of that in the next few years. We find out that engineering, education, and enforcement are very effective ways to prevent incidents, pedestrian incidents, and fatalities at rail crossings. We see here in the slide some of the these initiatives that happened even in northeastern Illinois about a few years ago, where the Illinois Commerce Commission and the FRA initiated the public education and enforcement research study, which is a peer study, as we say, to measure before and after change in the public adherence to traffic safety laws. And the study demonstrated a reduction in crossing violations and a dramatic reduction in the most dangerous pedestrian behavior. And similar experiences have been observed internationally, and most of the body of the literature comes from the New Zealand, but they have a lot of research going on pedestrian safety at the grade crossings. And it seems to be in agreement with the research that is being done in the United States, and it shows that exactly engineering, education, and enforcement really works. Regarding cost breakdown, we don't have too much information, but what whatever is available is that for class 1 railroads, meaning that for tracks, for crossings that serve class 1 railroads, the 35% of the total costs are used for installation of active warning systems, and about 20 to 25% for training detection. As we see later, the experts believe that this percentages can be lowered in the future. Regarding engineering standards and guidelines, we can see some of the sources of these guidelines and standards that are available in the FHWA handbook, the MUTCD, the REMAC, the American Railway Engineering and Maintenance of Way Association Communications and Signal Manual, and also locally at various states that have advanced codified some of these standards for their own use. And so we can see in California, for example, both Caltrain and Metro and CP, the California Public Utility Commission, both are recommending these engineering standards and guidelines for their crossings in their state. And also APTA has come out and proposed a few standards for light rail train. The TRB has taken an interest and has documented in Report 69, TRB Report 69, which is available on the web, a decision tree for selecting appropriate treatments at pedestrian grade crossings. And internationally, a lot of research in the United Kingdom about a risk scoring methodology that evaluates safety factors at station pedestrian crossings. In Australia, we also have heavy use of risk type of methodologies. The particular model that is heavily in use there is called ALCAM, and it's only one of only 4 operational models that account for pedestrian volumes. So the rest of them usually account just for rail highway interaction, vehicles and trains. So these are the general results that we find from the literature, and we try to document only those that there seems to be some general consensus. The rest of the presentation will cover some of the feedback that we received from the experts. And again, by experts, we mean the expert engineers who work for the state departments of transportation and utility commissions, and also consultants who work in the private sector. What we find out is that the prioritization of safety upgrades is for pedestrian crossings. Safety upgrades are usually prioritized based on a diagnostic review process, as we know, that examines the number of criteria, for example, the number of tracks, the engineering design, number of trains, the train speed, etc. And the decisions are usually based on a consensus among the stakeholders who are representing all the groups that have jurisdiction over the crossings and or affected by operations. However, the safety upgrades at the dedicated pedestrian crossings are not prioritized as highly as those as unless these two types of crossings are adjacent to each other and both serving both vehicles and pedestrians on sidewalks. Another concern regarding engineering standard is that states with that have substantial passenger, commuter, and freight rail operations are naturally leading the effort to develop guidelines and engineering standards for safety improvement. In the longer term, it is likely that pedestrian safety at rail-grade crossings will benefit by the increasing consistency in standards for warning devices and treatments among the different agencies involved in pedestrian safety at rail-grade crossings. For example, as an example of standard consistency, the definition of advanced preemption in the MUTCD manual looks or should look the same as the one in ARIMA publications and ITE documents, as well as APTA standards. And we'll see later, I believe, maybe I can go back to that, that this type of standards will merit a lot more attention with the advent of high-speed rail operations in the United States. Another issue that the experts emphasized in our conversations with them was the reliability of cost estimates. We're finding out that it's difficult to find detailed cost estimates of actual costs. And that creates, of course, some difficulty in estimating the effectiveness of the cost effectiveness of different treatments. And the reason that the experts told us is that it's difficult to trace this type of funding as they move, as they absorb in a much larger projects, like, for example, grade separation. And another reason is that also to have a detailed breakdown of this cost for design, installation, and maintenance, because this very cost breakdown is rarely finalized before the final stage, before the actual treatment is getting deployed on the field. So it's difficult to it's rarely we can rarely see some agreement in the numbers at the design stage, the design and build stage, and then in practice. Of course, one of the arguments in that is or one of the reasons, at least, that the emphasis is not there yet about maintaining detailed cost estimates is that the number of fatalities is relatively low and would be rather difficult to assign the cost effectiveness value to a particular treatment, which is probably much easier to do with the high car volumes at rail highway crossings. Also, the experts emphasize that we would need to have a lot of to provide for the state departments of transportation to provide cost oversight to effectively manage the scarce funding that comes their way for grade crossings safely. Regarding the funding availability, we know that the vast majority of funding available for safety improvements is usually programmed for rail highway crossings and very rarely exclusively for dedicated pedestrian grade crossings. The experts believe that it would be critical that Section 130 of the safety bill, Section 130 funding, remain exclusive to railroad safety and not rolled back with other highway funds. And one of the benefits additionally by doing that is that continuing this source of support will help maintain the level of expertise for rail safety at the FRA as well as the State's Department of Transportation, which is very critical. The selection criteria, one of the weakness in the existing way of doing things as far as selecting the appropriate mix of safety treatments is that we have this criteria that we believe that based on the experience that are very critical in the operation of a particular crossing, but this multitude of factors are used in a rather ad hoc manner on a case-by-case basis. And because mainly we don't have a reliable methodology to assess the trade-offs among the different criteria. On the rail highway side of operations, we have the accident prediction formula, for example, that provides some trade-offs that fed into the assessment methodology that the FRA has produced. But the pedestrian side of things is not there yet. And so, in practice, this process happens as a consensus building exercise among the diagnostic team members, and of course, the experience of we depend on the experience of these engineers so that they can deploy the right mix of treatments. But again, because of the funding scarcity, especially dedicated for pedestrian crossings, it would be probably more cost effective if we would have some automated way of making this kind of decisions. The experts also noted the lack of accessible pedestrian signals, and of course this is due mainly to the shortage of dedicated funding of crossings, and another reason is that the infrequent use of accessible signals at rail crossings, the lack of standardization among different manufacturers. And so not that the manufacturers are that many, and also that they don't have, they're not in agreement as far as to the standards. And of course, this is something that the standards are one of the purviews of the state utility commissions, of course, and departments of transportation. But obviously there will be some, as everything happens in the some interaction between state departments of transportation and private industry to develop the appropriate standards for accessible pedestrian signals. The experts believe that education and enforcement campaigns are critical to continue for maintaining a safe environment for pedestrians at rail-grade crossings. And of all the things that seem to work is strong local advocacy and, of course, adequate funding for effective education, outreach, and enforcement campaigns. The experts recommend that such campaigns should continue unmitigated, and because what happens in fact sometimes is that because of the lack of funding, you have the campaign 1 month or for a week or for 2 weeks, and then you have to come back the next funding cycle to repeat this kind of activities, or after a major event and things like that. But it would be the benefit of safe operations at crossings to have these campaigns continue unmitigated, and also that at light rail grade crossings, it would be campaigns at those locations probably would be more effective because of the additional support of the transit agency operating the light rail, and also of the users that probably are exposed and familiar with the frequency of transit operations. And this is, of course, these are locations where you have exclusive, say, freight operations, and the infrequency of freight operations gives the pedestrian users some false sense of safety. Risk management. The expert seems to believe that there is no consistent approach for managing the risk at pedestrian rail crossings, and this is compared to rail highway crossings. If we had this type of approach, we would be able to have some uniformity in the data collection, analysis, prioritization of crossing upgrades, introduction of suitable risk controls, and also, at the end, assessment of cost effectiveness of all these measures. Also, the public and private stakeholders' responsibilities are an important factor, because determining the most suitable mix of safety upgrades is a challenging issue by itself. And what makes it very challenging is that the public authority with jurisdiction over the particular crossing has an interest to select the most robust technology available to maximize the public investment in the long run. On the other hand, the private railroad who will be installing or deploying the selected treatment is looking to minimize the life cycle costs. That in addition will likely become obsolete before the end of its useful life, and was expensive to the interests of the public-private interests need to be balanced out. Experts to believe that quiet zones might not provide the benefits to pedestrian users at crossings like to motorists. This is because especially in cases when the pedestrians travel in groups and are distracted, especially when there are operations like a second train coming from the opposite direction that the pedestrian is moving. Trespassing mitigation is a very difficult issue to address, but it remains a must if we want to advance pedestrian safety. This can be done by publishing the information recorded by railroad cameras. We know that for the most part, this type of information is not available to the general public. And this would have a side benefit that we'll be able to correctly classify the location of the incidents that until recently, at least, many of these incidents were misclassified and attached to the nearest crossing, although they may have happened several hundred feet away from the particular crossing. And of course, the FRA initiative toward improving this classification of incidents and probably properly locating those incidents will help to this task. Now, in the absence of video monitoring information, the identification of trespassing hotspots needs to become a local issue, because after all, it's communities who know best where are these hotspots and the tendencies of the pedestrian users. So we need to have the frequent community enforcement and, of course, stronger coordination between regional police and local police departments. And also even coordination with the local judges and things like that. And it would be ideal, of course, that this kind of campaigns would be intensified with dedicated federal funding sources. So it is very important that trespassing issues becomes a community affair and not dismissed as mostly issues to be addressed solely by railroads and therefore private property. And the active participation of the enforcement personnel and the judicial system would be necessary, because what we see sometimes is that whatever cases are brought up through the legal system and in front of judges, that sometimes these cases are getting dismissed and not given the proper gravity, and to make an example of and properly advertised, of course, and things like that. So sometimes these cases, the trespassing violations, are treated lightly by our legal system. In conclusion, we finding that we need consistency of engineering standards and And especially with the advent of high-speed passenger rail service, that will probably require some re-education of pedestrian users, either in the vicinity or away from rail crossings. Also, it is in times of scarce funding, it's increasingly important to better track the programming and the expenditures for safety upgrades at rail crossings. There is an additional need to develop a cost-effectiveness evaluation process to facilitate the activities of the diagnostic team. And also very important to address the needs of users with disabilities. We need to continue to provide adequate funding for both local advocacy for education and enforcement activities. And also, we need to develop an appropriate risk management approach that will support the planning, programming, and implementation of safety upgrades at pedestrian rail crossings. Concludes my presentation, and I don't know if we have time for questions.
Okay, I'm unmuting everyone now, so if anybody has any questions, you can ask. It doesn't look like we have any questions.
I don't have any questions. Joe.
Okay, so we're done.
Well, thanks everybody for attending. And
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Is there another presentation?